Alrighty, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. I know it's a beautiful day outside, so you could be doing other things. And I appreciate you being here for A2NewTech, and I hope we have a lot more nice nights like this to enjoy this summer. So welcome to the June 2019 A2NewTech meetup, and I'm your host, David Nesbitt. I've been living here in Ann Arbor for 10 years now, 10 and a half, and been working in tech here for 5 years, and I help manage a portfolio of innovative academic tools at UMich, just a couple blocks away from here. And this meetup has been running since 2009, so this is our 10th anniversary year, and since 2009 we've had 100 plus meetups, 350 plus companies pitch, 7,300 members in climbing in the meetup group, and last year we had almost 60 pitches. So a lot of activity happening in this group, and yeah, a lot of great things that have come through these doors over those 10 years. This group, we like to think of it as a friendly front door for entrepreneurship in Michigan, and this is one of the key places that entrepreneurship is happening and being launched at the university, and so we're glad that you're here tonight taking part in it. Question to help us get a sense of who's in the room. Who's a first timer at A2NewTech? Awesome. A little bit fewer percentage-wise than usual, actually. Usually it's about half the group. But glad to have you guys here. Welcome. This is your first time. Who is here who's hiring, whose company is hiring, or they're hiring particularly for a position? Okay, a couple of people. And who's looking for a new role, looking for the next thing? A couple of people. Awesome. So we'll have a time in the community announcements after the pitches where you get to actually come up and make an announcement about that position you're looking for or that you're hiring for. So keep that in mind. Take note about something you want to announce, and then you can come up after the pitches when I call everybody up for announcements to make your announcement about whatever it is, whether hiring or something else. But tonight we're going to spend some time together in this time that we do monthly, which is a valuable time because it, one, helps us learn about what's happening out there in the tech community in Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is not the biggest city around, but there's a ton happening in tech, and that if you don't have events like this, it's hard to actually keep track of what's happening around us. Who's working on what, who's launching something, who's hiring for something. And we also can meet the people that are helping shape and build the future of tech in Ann Arbor. That's an important reason why this meeting monthly is valuable, is so you can actually connect. So one of the things I'd say to you is everyone's going to come in for different reasons tonight, but I encourage you to find a way to help someone else out, with a connection or give them a piece of advice, offer them help on something, and yeah, see if you can help out someone who's here, whether while you're at the meetup or over at the networking at Dominic's afterwards. And speaking of Dominic's, definitely come join us at Dominic's to eat some free pizza courtesy of Ann Arbor Spark, who's our pizza sponsor. And that time is always a really great time to actually talk more in depth with people, meet some more people. You might meet a couple here, but it's just hard to talk to a ton in this room. And so over there is a really good place for networking and just chatting and digging a little bit deeper. In the next month, if you are interested to stay connected with this group and the tech community at large in Ann Arbor, before our next meetup, a really great way to do that is joining our Slack team. And so our Slack team, you can find the instructions to join it at madeina2.com/Slack. That's madeina2.com/Slack. And in that Slack team, you'll find general announcements from folks in the community in tech. It is tech specific. And so if that's you and that's a community you're interested in staying connected with, you should join it. But general announcements, open jobs, people post about a variety of things in there, events that are happening related to tech here. So it's a great place to kind of keep your pulse on what's happening here and stay connected. I also want to take a quick moment to say thank you to some people that helped make this event happen now and over the years as well. Like I said, you don't get through 10 years of doing this meetup without a lot of people pitching in and helping out. So first I want to thank A2 Geeks, which is a nonprofit dedicated to making Southeastern Michigan and Ann Arbor a great place for geeks and creatives to live, work, and play. Roger Rayle from R2 Vibe does our video each month for this event. And so if you want to hire Roger for video work, look up R2 Vibe. And let's give Roger a round of applause for doing our video. He doesn't ask me to do that, by the way, so that round of applause is totally voluntary.
There's a not to do.
Yeah, he probably prefers not. But yeah, look up R2 Vibe if you're interested in hiring him for video work. I also want to say thank you to some organizers that have helped run this group over the years, helped curate presenters, and really helped make Ann Arbor New Tech what it is. So some of those would be Doug Song, Zach Steindler, Scott Gosey, David Bloom, David Corcoran, Brian Kelly, Brooke Boyle, and others. And so we thank those folks for the time that they put in over the years. And we also want to thank the Entrepreneurship Clinic at the U of M Law School. This is a really important one because they help us get this room, which is an awesome room for people to pitch in, for us to be in, and to be able to engage in this event. And so we're really appreciative that they help us get this space. And Dana Thompson's the founding director of Michigan's Law Entrepreneurship Clinic. And so if you're a company in Michigan, especially a startup, you can actually get free IP, corporate and various legal services from law students here at the university. And so if you're interested in that, if that would be valuable to you or your company, you should contact Laura Schultz, who's the clinic administrator for the Entrepreneurship Law Clinic, or the Law Entrepreneurship Clinic, and she can get you connected or tell you what they can do to help you. And then last but not least, Ann Arbor Spark, I mentioned, is sponsoring our networking pizza. And so they've done this monthly for a long time now, which is super great because it gives us a great way for people to connect, and it brings more people into networking. So Ann Arbor Spark, if you're not familiar, is committed to bringing together organizations and individuals to support the growth of companies and the creation of jobs. And so we appreciate them and their support. Okay, so those things aside, we're going to jump into our pitch time in a second. So our agenda for tonight is we're going to go until about 8 p.m. in this room, and 5 companies are going to pitch. We've got 5 companies from kind of a diverse set of industries, which will be exciting tonight. They're each doing a 5-minute pitch and then a 5-minute Q&A time afterwards. And after those pitches, we'll have time for the community announcements, like I said. So write yours down, think about the meetup that you want to pitch or an event you want to let people know about, and then you can make that 1 to 2 minute pitch afterwards in the community announcements time. One note about the Q&A, so after the company's pitch, you'll get 5 minutes to do Q&A with them. Please make sure to ask something in the form of a question. It can be tempting to want to give feedback. You probably have lots of ideas, maybe you have experience with something that they're doing, and you'll be eager to give feedback or to weigh in. But please do it in the form of a question and then save like advice or conversation for afterwards. And also try to limit it to 1 question, so let's the other audience members get in with their own questions, and then everyone ask to hear what they're interested in. So ask your questions in the form of a question and try to limit it to 1. So we're going to start in just a second, but as we do, silence your phones. Make sure to put those on silent so they don't interrupt. And then if you're tweeting or Instagramming or otherwise social media-ing this event, use hashtag A2NewTech. So yeah, that's it. So I'm going to call up our first presenter, which is Rayle Lingua, Keith Phillips. And as Keith is coming up, let me tell you a little bit about what Rayle Lingua does. So Rayle Lingua is the holy grail of foreign language learning. They build software that teaches you how to speak a language the way it's really spoken by native speakers every day. And a fun fact about Keith's team at Rayle Lingua is that their current team of 4 speaks a total of 5 different languages plus English.
Dave, can I just mention the 3-minute thing?
Oh yes.
Sorry.
One last thing also. Keith is getting ready for a competition, pitch competition that has a 3-minute pitch. So he's actually going to do his pitch in 3 minutes. And so we'll all get to time him and see how he does on that. So it'll be a little bit shorter than usual, but we'll do a 5-minute Q&A afterwards.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. And I'll get started here in a second. I have to dash real quickly right after this. I have a meeting, so I'm going to leave some cards there. Love to connect if anyone wants to do that. So usually I give this pitch naked, not unclothed, but without a deck, which is what that means in pitching. So I've got some slides just to kind of guide things here and there, but great.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Keith Phillips, founder and CEO of Rayle Lingua. Okay, quickly. The sun is yellow, or, oh, that's cool. If you could only say one phrase in French on your next trip to Paris, which of those would you rather have? Rayle Lingua teaches you all the language you'll actually use in just 16 lessons. Nearly 85% of the top 1,000 most used words in French in context as spoken by actual native speakers. Our biggest competitors teach you how to say things like the sun is yellow or the apple is red. But let's face it, you don't actually need to say that to anyone in France, ever. Rayle was the holy grail of foreign language learning. We build software that teaches you how to speak a language the way it's really spoken by native speakers every day. People study a language in order to be able to speak it, first and foremost. But current offerings are really only designed to teach pieces of a language with a focus on out-of-context rote memorization. With Rayle curated, patent-pending curated immersion approach, we get you speaking like a native speaker authentically and as quickly as possible, all based on how people naturally learn languages. The language learning software market in the US, it was $1.7 billion in 2018 and is poised to grow to $2.1 billion by 2023. With an average annual subscription rate of $150, we're projecting a 1.8% market capture over the 5-year period 2019 to 2023, with revenues of $37.8 million in the same period. We have 4 main enterprise and institution target customers. B2E and B2I comprise nearly 60% of the market. We're currently in discussions with a large refugee services provider to pilot Rayle English for their refugee care recipients, and also Rayle French and Rayle Spanish as an employee services benefit for their team members and volunteers. Helping the newly arrived mother learn English so she can get a job is good for her, it's good for her family and the community, and it aligns perfectly with our mission. Our team is currently myself and a growing tech team of super dedicated software engineers. I grew up with French and English at home. I'm a domain expert, lifelong intro and entrepreneur with 22 plus years teaching experience and 2 degrees in foreign language education. We're currently raising a seed round so that we can do more market penetration, do more user acquisition and partnership development, also to release additional languages and get more people to say, oh, that's cool. Merci beaucoup.
Awesome, thanks Keith. What questions do we have for Keith? Yeah, Gary.
Are the lessons going to be the same for every user or different based on the users? Like, is it affected by AI essentially?
So that's machine learning definitely factors into this. We don't have that capability right now, but that's in our sights, for sure. Because everyone's going to learn. Obviously, everyone's going to learn differently, and so we want to tailor that experience. Right now what we have is something fairly standard in the industry, which is called spaced repetition. So you're seeing things fairly regularly. Things that you're good at, you're going to see less of. Things you're not doing so well at, you're going to see more of. That sort of thing, with the practice. Yeah.
Over here? Yeah, go ahead.
Which languages are you currently up on?
So we've released our first product. It's in beta. Rayle French is out there. It's on our site. We have Rayle Spanish and Rayle English currently in pre-development. But what I mean by that is we have all the content captured. We just need to press go on the release.
Right.
How does your customer use your software? Like, are they using that for sourcing the course, or are they asking a question type of, like, how do they use it?
How do they interact with it? Sure. So the core, the central piece of it is it's a video, but within that is there are 2 native speakers having a short conversation. You don't see the native speakers, you hear them, you see what they're saying in the target language, you see what they're saying in the working language. So the working language in this case for French is English for the US market, but that working language would change depending on where we're targeting. Built around those videos are practice activities expertly designed for retention, memorization, and pronunciation.
So if I'm going on a vacation to France,
Right.
how long should I use this to speak no French at all? Like to become I'm not gonna get lost and can order at a restaurant, stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, if you had 2 hours on the plane, you maybe, most people we found in our customer discovery, most people will have this sense of, I should learn some of the language. But many products give customers this sense of, you're going to need a long time to do this. So Real flipped this by focusing on actual native speaker conversations. So, if you had 2 hours, you'd get through the first maybe 4 or 5 lessons. With that, you're getting about 30% of the top 1,000 most used words. With 30% of the top 1,000 most used words, you can start following about 60% of all regular daily usage of the language. Are you going to be fluent? We're not promising that. If we could, which I hope we can at some point, that would be great. But you're going to be more comfortable.
So what about the top 1,000? Like how long would you?
The top 1,000. Well, you're going to get 850 of that. About 850 of those in 16 lessons. So we've tried to model it because we're targeting education institutions, specifically higher ed institutions. We tried to model this so that it would be easily integratable into a course or as an ancillary, right? We don't want to compete with instructors, that's not where we're at, but if we can integrate it. And so 16 lessons we found fits real nicely in that. But someone could, you could blast through this in a couple of weeks if you wanted. The key is, going through it again, right? And so, that's how we learn our native language. And so,
Over here.
It sounds like your real strong selling point is the lessons themselves. Wondering why you chose to build software instead of making it kind of a teachable module or something like that.
Yeah, well, I think the thing there is what we're trying to do is gain market entry right into what's a fairly crowded market with moderate barriers to entry with what we have here, and then we want to start stacking and moving out from there. So that's primarily why we wanted to build a platform we can expand on.
I have a question about essentially like a big part kind of off of that is your method in teaching is part of like the secret sauce that would be the value. Any like impact studies or anything like that to show efficacy of this process they can really prove to
right.
investors?
So we get this question all the time. Investors ask me this question all the time. We don't have anything yet, but it's in our sights. We're looking to partner with at least one education institution in particular.
Cool. One more question maybe? Right there.
Do you or have you developed a mobile app? Because I can see that coming very in handy for
Right, absolutely. So we we're bootstrapping this. We had to make a choice. So we went dynamic web app first, but we're working as we speak. Actually, our CTO is right over here. We're working as we speak. I don't know if he's working on it right now. On native mobile. So for both the major platforms. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Alrighty, and our next pitch is Elm Analytics, LLC, and Paul Morin and Tor Huff are here to present. And their product is SupplyAware, which is a cloud-based service for mapping and managing risk in manufacturing supply chains.
Oh, nice. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. How about that?
Okay. I want to skip that. We just covered that. In March 2012 in Marl, Germany, a plant caught fire. 130 firemen spent a couple of days trying to put that plant out. About 3 weeks later, 200 OEMs and automotive suppliers met in Detroit to try to figure out how to save the auto industry. What happened was a plant that manufactured PA12, a precursor to plastic, blew up and it nearly took out the entire auto industry. Why does this happen? It happens because supply chains are hierarchical, and you get guys buried in the bottom of the supply chain like golf here that are hidden and almost invisible to the manufacturers at the top of that supply chain. This is a problem because supply chains drive cost, delivery time and quality, innovation, agility. They go directly to the organizational excellence or the enterprise value of that company. It's made more complicated because in managing those supply chains, you have all sorts of internal and external forces that complicate what you're trying to do. If you look at Tesla, a butterfly flaps its wings in Indonesia and Tesla's enterprise value drops 100 million. Their supply chains are a nightmare right now because they're vehicle electrified, they're autonomous, they're dealing with NAFTA, they're dealing with China. It's a compelling problem. How big is the problem? Gartner says by 2021, a $19 billion problem led by SaaS solutions to help companies solve these problems. There's 1.4 million manufacturers globally that are going to have a headache that need aspirin. How are they going to solve those problems? Typically, what the competitors that we have do, and they've been around for a long time, is they rely on the power of alpha, that top tier manufacturer, to force their suppliers to disclose information. The data flows from the bottom up, and it gives asymmetrical advantage to the manufacturer. What we do is recognize that supply chains are actually a social network, that other approach has a whole bunch of lines missing where data doesn't get to flow and help people optimize the network. And we created SupplyAware, which sits in the middle where we act as a trusted third party. Suppliers provide us the data. We share the analytic byproducts with those suppliers and with the entire network. We do 6 things that are different. I'm only going to give you the first and the last. The first is respect confidentiality. If you give me your list of suppliers, I will never share it with anybody, not your customer, not anybody. Pick winners, not losers. One of the major issues with supply chain management today is we try to figure out who's going to fail or who's failing. It's not what you want to do. You want to pick who is manufacturing the right thing in the right place at the right time. We have 4 software as a service tools that are in production today, in use by companies today. One is 35,000 profiles in manufacturing companies around the globe. A platform, an enterprise platform for collecting data from suppliers on behalf of an OEM, a system for monitoring and providing feedback at events, and then the sort of crown jewel that brings them all together, SupplyAware, which maps supply chains starting at the top and working down layer for layer as we go. What this allows us to do is approach this problem in a way that we get massive network effect, which solves a really critical software as a service problem, which is how do you get your next customer? If we take a typical sale that we have, 600, an OEM or a manufacturer with 600 suppliers is going to net us somewhere close to $500,000 in annual recurring revenue and net us almost 7,000 additional prospects to call on through their suppliers, because we're asking that manufacturer as part of the pricing to recommend us to their direct suppliers. We also have the ability, because it's a platform solution, to add on a host of additional value-added, cost-up kind of things. Our history, going back a long way, we worked for a lot of very large enterprises doing the supply chain mapping as custom apps. We turned a corner a few years ago and said, let's build the solution, and that's in fact what we've done here. We have traction. These are customers, big red logos, lots of suppliers, large supply chains that we're going to work with. What we're out to do today is to raise the capital to let us go after the big blue logos. That if we pull down a GM or a Ford, starting with 6,000 suppliers at the top, the numbers are much, much larger. So we're going to use that capital for primarily headcount operations, advertising, and promotion. What we want from you guys is investors or strategic financial advisors, individuals or companies that have value-added analytics to add to our platform, or team members that want to help us engage suppliers. Took 45 seconds off that that's a record for me.
That was some of the most I've seen covered in a pitch, so kudos.
Oh, thank you.
At least in this room. Great, what questions do we have?
Yeah.
The one thing that stuck out to me, one of your bullet points was it's not about you. What does
Yes.
that mean?
An awful lot of times the The manufacturer does this because they think they need to understand how effective their supply chain management is. What we find out is that most manufacturers aren't in business if they suck at managing supply chains. The problem is that their suppliers aren't very good at it. So when we say, give us your list of suppliers, what we do is we go to each of their suppliers and say, how are you doing at managing your supply chain? So it's not about you, it's about how well your suppliers are doing. And almost across the board, at whatever size we get to, the manufacturers don't really understand that.
In the back?
So if you were to sign up like a bunch of suppliers, would the suppliers be responsible for inputting all of the information so that other companies can see? So like their production values, any problems they might have?
We stay away from the complexity of that. If I take a Denso, they might provide 15,000 parts to Toyota. We don't ask them to upload 15,000 separate supply chains. So they upload their list of direct suppliers. We cleanse that list of direct suppliers and help them understand where the problems are within that direct list of suppliers. We never share those supplier lists with their customers. So Denso's got 60 customers. Those customers will see the analytic byproduct of what we do for Denso. They will never see Denso's list.
Question over here in front?
I know it was briefly on the slide, but could you just quickly cover what the round specifics you're looking to do? I saw $1 million. Could you just go into quick details about what you're looking to raise?
Yeah, so we'd like to raise $1 million
Okay.
in equity, through equity. And you know, we're throwing out there a $5 million valuation today. We've put about $250,000 of our own cash into it in the last year, just kind of, other than what it costs to develop, we're feeding cash to make the machine work today.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Question very back.
Yeah, your example about what happened that basically stalled the automotive industry. If
Yes.
it was available, how would things have been different?
I'm sorry? How would we be different under our solution? Is that the question?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, so Ivana, going back to that tree, sorry.
no, so your point about what happened that stalled the automotive industry.
Yes.
If you were present for that company, how would things have been different?
So that gulf at the bottom of that hierarchy would have been visible to us before the fact. And what we call that is a choke point. And we would have been able to advise not just alpha at the top, but everybody in between, that there's a choke point 1, 2, or 3 layers down that needs to be addressed. And the direct suppliers, or the customers that directly employ that supplier, would know who it was and have the option of finding alternate sources or beefing up the countermeasures that would assist in recovery from something like occurred.
Right here?
Yeah, I can see the benefit for the OEMs, but why would the supplier want to join your platform?
Because the supplier today is living under this tyranny of dominance of the customer over supplier. They don't get good information, and you know, when we go to that social network diagram and you see all those red lines, that's information they don't have to effectively manage their supply chain. So by participating, they're not giving up their suppliers to anybody. They're not giving up any confidentiality or competitive advantage, but they're getting the analytic byproduct of what's occurring in the network, which allows them to manage their supply chain more effectively. Again, it's sort of the pick the winner. I want to build the right thing in the right place. Today, I don't have the information to do that. And that's endemic across the globe in every industry. It's automotive, aerospace, defense, heavy equipment, food, consumer goods.
Last one right here.
Yeah, so we're the customer for this, the banks and investors.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're the ones who cross the whole supplier base.
Yeah, so the direct value that we deliver is to the manufacturers. We make them, we give them the ability to maintain their operational excellence. The analytic byproduct that we end up with, that's an astute question. There's a ton of data that we get that will allow us to understand the supply chains better from an overview than anyone else. So.
Yeah, because an OEM will go out and chop out a part, and then something mysterious happens. And for some reason, they choose one vendor over another.
Yeah.
Usually that's the banks, right, and the investors. who are making the decision.
It can be. Private equity is a big player in supply chains today. I totally agree with you on that.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have Loop Software and Testing Services, and Ben Fellows is pitching. And so while he's getting set up, let me tell you about Loop. Loop Software and Testing Services provides black box software testing for startups and enterprise tech within niche markets. And an interesting fact about Ben, not exactly a fun fact, as he said earlier, is that he sold his house to start this company. So obviously he really believes in it, and looking forward to hearing his pitch.
Okay. Maybe it's, I think we're good on this session. Yes, I'm actually staying on my girlfriend's couch these days, so here's to hoping this goes well. Because that has a short lifespan associated with it. So, yeah, like you said, my name is Ben Fellows. I'm the CEO of Loop Software and Testing Services. So quick background on me. I ran operations for a startup called A2NewTech in Traverse City for the last 4 years. We raised about $2.4 million. Started with 2 people, went up to about 27. We built a complex box office solution, essentially. And during that time, when we were a small team, we were all staying up till midnight every night doing the software testing before releases. Pretty quickly, we realized that was going to get old, so we started to look for outsourced options. Most outsourced options we found were just not great. 99% of it's now in India, Ukraine, and a number of other countries. What they're good at is 5,000 test cases that are predefined, pre-built, have clear errors associated with them. But what they really struggle with is understanding the intention of your software, a lot of the relationship components, or if there's not a bug that's like readily apparent that they have to chase down. So we did find a company in Canada that said, oh, we're doing this product-centric software testing. We understand your intention, we're part of your team, you don't have to handhold, and we liked that, but ultimately felt like the execution wasn't there. And so when I looked at this problem, I realized that the common thread was really the testers themselves. 9 out of 10 testers seem to be entry-level employees who are coming in, given a set of instructions on how to test. And when they're looking at your product, then what they're basically doing is just executing that set of instructions rather than actually understanding your product and the intention. And so when I left Geotex, I decided to try to find a solution for this. And so my solution is this. I hire testers that have product-oriented backgrounds, so either they were in product development beforehand, or I hire testers that pass a series of exams completely related to their ability to pick up a product or a platform and understand it effectively very quickly. That basically focuses on analytical ability, technical ability, innate curiosity, and problem solving. So the surprising market that I found that was best at that is actually students. 20-year-olds who have grown up with technology as part of their hands since the time they were a toddler now, understand apps at a pace that I frankly can't even, and it's just getting faster generation by generation. In addition, they are able to do part-time, so that's 15 hours a week, which actually shows that they can be highly focused during that time as opposed to getting a tester who's on their 30th hour that week and you're starting to get diminishing returns. So far customers agree. I know these quotes are kind of specific and small, so I'm happy to provide this in writing, but we have 10 customers throughout the United States, in Canada as well, and now in India. The industries that we're in are in fintech, health tech, ed tech, event ticketing, blockchain, machine learning, and AI. We really do go into any industry because frankly, it's more about our ability to pick up a platform, figure out 80% of the assumptions, clear up the last little bits about what your platform's trying to do, and then just bring it to the finish line. So the actual service that we're providing. So we do what's called black box testing. So we're never touching your code. I believe the engineers, as they're actually doing the code, should be doing your unit testing and integration testing. We're doing regression suites, user acceptance testing, compatibility testing, everything that's either at the beginning of your development cycle or at the end of your development cycle. So specifically, the clients that we're looking for right now are startups that have raised around $500 to $5 million. They're oftentimes at a position where their core team is starting to look for solutions to time-sensitive or time-intensive problems, testing being one of them. We do want startups, though, that have pretty defined sprint cycles, are doing some kind of unit testing as well, have user stories, and so we work with them to try to formalize those systems, but if they're not, well, I guess we still work with them at this point. We're an early stage company, so So what makes us better? It's frankly 4 things. Onboarding speed. We do a half an hour call, and then we can do a 2-week regression pass, which we actually will build ourselves at this point. That's pretty impressive, to toot my own horn, I guess, in this industry where most of the time you're looking at 3 months, 2 months before you're really getting effective product coverage from outsourced teams. Time to first value, same thing, we're finding bugs that much faster. We've gone into products that had outsourced solutions and found significantly more bugs off the bat. I have case studies that I can share with you about that. And then lastly, communication. So one of the cardinal rules that we have is effective communication that never wastes your time. So why are we here? We're looking for business development opportunities, University of Michigan connections. I'm a proud alumni, so I'm trying to find students. Potential sales reps. I'm actually not looking for outside venture capital yet. I did finance this, and I have 3 to 1 seconds, and so that is Luke.
Gotta say, I love how prompt these pitches are. Also notice that you're in fintech, blockchain, and machine learning AI, so you've hit all the buzzword industries. Which
Yeah, well, it's actually worked out well because the first 10 clients we had really were across a diverse range, and so that's been really great to see that they all have pretty similar needs.
Looks good on the slide too. Cool, what questions do we have? Right here in the middle?
Yeah, do you use any automation technology for your testing?
Yeah, so we do all manual testing, and the reason's pretty specific. I found that most startups tend to invest in automation too early. They spend more time on an immature product just maintaining the automation and trying to keep it working than actually getting value out of it. I totally believe in automation as a solution, and that's where I max out around that $5 million raised, because that's when you should really start automating your entire suite.
Question over here?
How long do your business engagements usually last?
So when I did this originally, it was upwards of 2.5 years, and we were still doing it when I left that company. It becomes a bit of a drug that you can't get rid of as a company. Once you start having this as a solution, it's really hard to just walk away from, because you're either hiring people and taking on really large fixed costs, or the reputation of the industry itself. There's a lot of players in it that just aren't that good, and so when you find somebody that's good, you tend to see pretty sticky relationships.
Right here.
Your services include any security testing?
Not formally, but we have found security flaws. I never sell it because it's not something that we currently offer, but we did have some 2-part tokenization issues where contractors oversold what they built, and we were able to figure that out. I'd like to get into load testing, security testing, a number of sort of natural fits, but I don't sell that as a capability right now.
Okay.
So manual testing with students, how do you manage turnover? Things on pace.
Yeah, so basically what I'm doing there is, because my goal, and I'm still early stage, my goal is to basically fail 9 out of 10 students that try to work with me, and only find students that can come up to speed in a period of 2 to 4 weeks, have them under some sort of an agreement that's about 2 years, and then basically manage it in cohorts. That is a problem, though, that I'm well aware of being, and that's one that I'm hoping to address as I go.
Matt?
What cost savings does a service represent over, it seems like you're trying to compete with like professional QA tester, like a reputable QA firm.
Yeah.
For small businesses, what sort of cost savings do you have over your competitors?
So who I compete with primarily is outsourced firms that are overseas offering $40 an hour. I'm actually significantly more expensive than that, and that's because basically there's a number of hidden costs associated with that. One is the bugs that weren't found. 2 is the amount of communication that goes back and forth. And then 3 is just the inefficiencies of actually going through. I basically pitch that my hourly is actually more expensive than most other solutions, but I'll save you money on a month-over-month basis. So I actually do sell this as a premium service because I think my quality is just that much better.
What is your price at per hour?
115. When I paid for this as a service, I paid $125. And so I'm marking that down, and I'm doing that bulk discounts.
Other questions?
Yeah. So you are targeting startups, and they do not maintain their documentation well, right? And when they hands up all the business rules to you, so it's on you to maintain the...
Yeah, so we do actually maintain like the regression suites. And there is sort of open-ended questions on whose work product that is. We're working with people on a sort of an individual basis to make sure everybody's comfortable with it. But no, we maintained the regression suites. Our goal is that we're handling the entire QA portion of that development cycle. So after stuff goes into staging, we're doing all of it before it goes back into sort of deployment.
Let's say an organization is considering, let's say, hiring their own QA person versus using a service like that. Or building their own team versus this. How would you pitch them, or how would you advise them about when it makes sense to go with a service like yours versus building in-house?
Yeah, so that goes to just fixed costs versus scalable costs.
Yeah.
The average client I work with only needs about 15 hours of QA a month. So they're looking at taking on a $55,000 salary that has benefits associated with it and not actually needing the QA most of the time. Once again, there's a size of client that I definitely recommend. The interesting thing about this, though, is enterprise-sized clients can't find enough hands these days, and so they basically white label certain contractors. So it's like startups, enterprise, and then a size in between that should be doing this internally with fixed or with their own teams.
Cool. That's all the time we got. Thank you. Alrighty, and then our next pitch is Amit Reddy is pitching Equal.
Oh, you're using this.
Yeah. And Equal, so Amit is pitching Equal. Equal helps self-insured employers easily set up, offer, and manage direct primary care as an employee benefit, saving them money on healthcare costs.
All right. Yeah, thanks for the intro, David. As David mentioned, my name is Amit Reddy. I am a co-founder and CEO of Equal Health, based right here in Detroit, and we just officially launched in April of 2019.
Just a heads up, I don't think your presentation's on.
That's a really good point. You have to drag us over.
Nice background.
Thanks, man. Okay. Yep, so, all right, what is Equal? So we help self-insured employers easily set up, offer, and manage direct primary care as an employee benefit. I'll get into what direct primary care means in a minute, but first I'll just talk a little bit about myself. So my background is in healthcare, and I spent about a decade working in hospital administration. I saw a lot of things in that world that I didn't like, a lot of inefficiencies, as I'm sure you can imagine. And so I left, and I'm hoping to spend the next decade working on what I think is the biggest issue and challenge in healthcare today, and that's access to high quality, affordable primary care. Okay, so primary care is the front door and access point of our healthcare system today, and it absolutely sucks. It's just the worst thing ever. All of you have probably experienced this at some point. So let's say you have tried to get a doctor's appointment. You call in, it takes them 2 days, 3 days, maybe a week to schedule an appointment. Then you get there and you wait half an hour at least in the waiting room. Then a nurse comes in, takes you back, works you up, asks you to wait. The doctor will be right in to see you. There's another 10 to 15 minutes right there. Then the doctor comes in and he or she spends maybe 10, maybe 15 if you're lucky, with you. And the whole time they're looking at their charts, they're typing into their notes, and it's a very impersonal and inefficient customer experience. So as a result, everyone hates going to the doctor, and people are just not doing it. That's a big problem for us because 1 in 4 Americans today don't have a regular doctor, which means that and the ones that do have a regular doctor are only going maybe once or twice a year, and that means they're not getting the care that they need. So we have a country that is going to the emergency room too much, they're getting too many unnecessary surgeries, and they're ending up in the hospital, which is driving up costs for everyone. This is where direct primary care, also known as DPC, comes in. So DPC doctors have essentially opted out of the insurance model of healthcare today and in favor of a membership-based model of practice. What that means is you can go see these doctors for an unlimited amount of times. As many times as you need to go see your doctor, you can go, or as few times. And there's no additional co-pays with each visit. They're also, because these doctors take on fewer patients, they have a lot more time to spend with each individual patient. So you can expect 30 to 45 minutes with your doctor, and they'll take the time to get to know you and your healthcare needs. It's a lot more high touch. And it's convenient because a lot of these doctors are offering text, email, and other sort of phone calls. So quick questions if you have kids at home, one of them starts throwing up at 9 o'clock at night, it's really convenient to be able to call your doctor and he's just going to prescribe something. So patients are loving this kind of high touch primary care. So if DPC is so great, if direct primary care is so awesome, then why don't any of you know about this? And why isn't everyone doing it? And the answer is because half of us today get our healthcare through our employers. If any of you know anything about the employer healthcare market, it's a mess. And what you probably do know is that healthcare costs continue to rise. Employers are footing most of that bill. And if you're a self-insured business, every dollar that you spend on healthcare is a dollar that comes directly out of your bottom line. So employers are highly motivated to lower costs, and they're looking for those creative solutions like direct primary care. So this is where direct primary care can come and help businesses. So some of the benefits of DPC, lowering costs and improving outcomes for patients. You're going to have less surgeries, less hospitalizations, less ER visits, lower prescription costs, and so forth. So there's a host of benefits that have been proven out. So employers want to do this. They want to offer DPC, but they can't because for a few reasons, and I'm going to speed up here, but a single DPC doctor can't handle hundreds of employees being dumped on them at one time, and employers can't architect the benefit and manage eligibility, enrollment, and payments on their own. So logistical reasons, and that's where Equal comes in to solve these pains. We aggregate all of the doctors in the area, so your employees can pick from whoever their doctor based on whatever their needs are, and then we also manage the eligibility, enrollment, and payment processing for the employer to make this as streamlined as possible and as easy as possible to offer as an employee benefit. So how are we doing so far? Doctors love it, brokers love it. We're working on our first customer, 240 employees. On Thursday, we're meeting them, and we need your help for recruiting a CTO and software engineers and intros to employers as well as brokers. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes. Questions for me?
Yes.
So would your target business for this be primarily large businesses or small startups?
There's value to any size business, but we're primarily targeting self-insured employers. Self-insured means if you're an employer you're essentially paying for your healthcare costs out of your own pool of money rather than insurers, and self-insured businesses are typically larger. That being said, as costs continue to go up, more and more small businesses, not startups, but small businesses over 50 employees are starting to be self-insured. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Question back?
You work with Plum Health in Detroit.
That's right. Yes, we do. Dr. Paul is, he was one of the doctors listed on one.
Can you tell us what that deal looks like? Is that a model that you want to duplicate?
So we don't employ doctors and we don't contract with doctors. We are not providing any kind of care. We are the software play that helps employers get to Dr. Paul and Plum Health.
I understand. What's the value exchange between you and Plum Health? Tell us what deal you're trying to
I see. Yes. So Dr. Paul and Plum, they like to work with us because we're sending them business and helping them tap into the employer market. We don't charge them anything. This is entirely free for doctors. We charge the employers for managing the process and as a benefit and the software. Thank you. Yep.
There's a question here.
If I was to do this today, I would never pick primary care. I would pick surgery. I would pick the highest priced item for an employer who typically self-insured is big enough to have a fairly large risk for something like that. Orthopedic surgery would be one. Those guys are looking for access to others than referrals from primary care who are just stuck in the classic referral networks. And could make a big difference, but the surgeons don't know how to do it. So why wouldn't you pick something other than primary care because it's so thin margined already?
Right, and that's a great point. The highest cost to employers are surgeries, cancer, those high acuity cases. But those are not as easy to solve. You don't have, there's a lot of overhead that is required for surgeons as well as cancer patients and cancer treatment, but there's not as much room for improvement there, at least from a software perspective. There is room for improvement. Primary care, by opting out of the insurance model, you can drastically drop those costs and make it really easy for people to get preventative medicine. So by getting your screenings and good, upfront primary care on a regular basis, we're hoping that will drive down costs, more downstream costs like a surgery or a cancer case or a hospitalization.
Right here? Yes. So this work, so I'm thinking like, this doesn't do anything for like preventing like surgeries and cancers and things like that. So I would just have a higher deductible type insurance plan.
Exactly, yeah. So again, we're talking about self-insured businesses, self-insured businesses would wrap this into their existing medical plan. If you're not a self-insured business, or let's just say you are an individual, yes, that's exactly right. You pay $40 to $75 a month for unlimited primary care, and that'll cover most of your needs, 80% of your needs. Then you can pay less in premiums by taking a high deductible insurance plan and just have that as your fallback option in case something serious happens.
Yes.
So the employees of the employer, if they buy into this, they're limited to the doctors within the network that you would connect them to?
That's right, yes. The employees can always opt out and find their own doctor outside of that network, or elect to go to a spouse's insurance plan. But direct primary care doctors in the area will all be included in our software, in our product. Because we don't charge doctors, so there's no reason for them not to work with us unless they just have a philosophical reason not to.
Yeah, so my question is, let's imagine it's going to take off very soon. How are you going to ensure that there will be sufficient supply of doctors available? What would make them sway to go from a private practice or a hospital and work with you?
Sure, that's a great question. So we've been observing this trend, and direct primary care is growing year over year by 60%. So more and more doctors are switching over to this model of care every single year. The reason they're doing that is because, as you can imagine, doctors are getting really fed up with the insurance model. There's a lot of paperwork and administrative tasks. They have to see 25 to 30 patients a day to make a living. And so this is a lifestyle improvement for the doctors themselves. And you're seeing more and more of them realize that this isn't just a cute pilot project. This is something that now thousands of doctors are doing across the country. So, but yes, to answer your question, if we do run into a supply issue at that point, we're interested in helping doctors through leveraging technology and operational support and maybe some financing, launch their own clinics.
That's all the time we got. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and our last pitch is Jane UMich, and she's pitching Metagrate. So come on up, you can plug in. Metagrate is a cloud-based automated workflow solution that synchronizes data across companies' existing applications in a cost-effective, elegant way to eliminate waste and increase productivity. And a fun fact about Jane, two fun facts. One, she's not going to use a PowerPoint presentation. And then two, Bugs Bunny and Dr. Seuss are part of the Metagrate team. And so she can tell you more in her presentation about what that means.
All right. Great, David. Thank you so much for the introduction. As you've heard, this will be a naked but not unclasped pitch. I'm Jane Kitevich. I'm a product manager at Metagrate. And today I'm going to introduce you to Sadie before I'll talk about Dr. Seuss and Bugs Bunny. So Sadie is a cloud-based workflow automation solution. And what is the problem that we are trying to solve? Well, it is a problem that is at the backbone of any business, regardless of whether you're an established enterprise, or if you're a medium-sized business, or if you're just a startup, which is your ability to efficiently manage your workflow. Now, your workflows can very much range in complexity and steps. So your workflow can, for instance, include things like getting orders, processing orders, assembling orders, getting your invoices into QuickBooks, shipping, tracking, getting customer feedback, or it can be something much more complex. But the bottom line is that if you want to manage all of those steps, especially if you're considering growing, you need to have a solution in place that would allow you to streamline and to synchronize your data across all of its multiple applications that you use in order to make your business work. So the reason our solution was very much needed was because right now out there are only 3 possible or so options that you can pursue. Each one has its own limitations. So for instance, if you are an established business, you can go with an ERP, which is an enterprise resource planning. That usually means that you need to have a revenue of at least 8 figures or so, given their cost. The problem there is that they are not easily implementable. You need to overhaul the entire system, which means you are taking out all of the applications that work and that don't work in order to introduce something new, and then your employees need to learn something very unfamiliar. And then finally, it's also quite costly, even for enterprises that are quite established. Your second option is, if you're more limited in resources, is to look for customized solutions. But there, the problem is that customized solutions can still be costly, and on average, they tend to be more like a Band-Aid solution rather than a sustainable, holistic solution. And your third option is basically to say, all right, let me hobble along and see how that goes. And it probably will carry you thus far until you'll start growing and trying to be more scalable. And at that point, an issue, a hiccup in the workflow system can be quite lethal. So that's where Sadie comes in, and it solves all these problems that I have just identified and passes that with flying colors. And the reason it's able to do that is because of 3 attributes that Sadie has. Number 1, it is easily implementable. Number 2, we do not require you to remove those applications that are already working well. In other words, Sadie is configurable. We step in and we focus specifically on parts that are not synchronized, that are not working well. That also allows us to have a lot more options to solve different workflow problems, rather than having a very limited array of solutions. So right now we particularly target mid-sized businesses, even though Sadie can add value to a lot of different businesses and different industries and sizes. And the reason for that is that mid-sized businesses are the ones that already have complex enough operations, so it needs to have the solution. Second of all, they do not have enough resources yet, so it has to be a solution that is affordable. And third of all, they're still evolving, as do their workflows. And so solution has to be a configurable one, which is exactly what Sadie does. We've already tested that. The prototype has been applied in the case of Leon, which is a speakers company, and we are very proud to see how they've grown and now produce 6 times more orders than before. We also have a consistent stream of inbound traffic asking for our consulting services. And so right now our team is primarily comprised out of software engineers, and we're expanding on our business development front. But given the number of queries that we have been receiving, we very much would like to expand the team. So if there are any people in the room who are interested in software development or marketing and business development, let's talk later. So now I have to talk about Dr. Seuss, right? I promised you. So Dr. Seuss had this very poignant phrase, and that is, when you are in a slump, you're not in for much fun. Unslumping yourself is not easily done. And what we hope to do with Sadie is that we'll be able to help you unslump with ease, like it's a piece of cake. So that's how Dr. Seuss is part of the team. Thanks very much. Whew.
Awesome. What questions do we have? Right here?
So the typical ERP is going to be in a industrial setting. Is that what you're targeting, an industrial setting?
So ideally, we're looking for enterprises that are focusing on custom manufacturing, because they are the ones that obviously have very complex workflows. So yes, to answer your question, correct. The main difference, however, is that our focus is primarily on mid-sized businesses, because ERPs simply cannot be introduced in those cases, primarily due to cost factor and to the complexity factor that they bring along.
Question back here? How is it different from like a Zapier or similar product to that?
All right, so actually most of our software engineers have been a part of Zapier, so we're very familiar with that. And in fact, we are now being ranked number 6 on Zapier website. The difference is that Zapier is not always able to solve additional questions that might be coming up. So for instance, we're dealing with some clients, and part of our consulting services are with people who are using more Zapier, and we see how sometimes Zapier is simply unable to address the questions at hand. One of the reasons why we decided to build up on that and to create Sadie.
So am I right when I heard that you have both a product that you're offering, Sadie, as well as like consulting services?
Correct. So right now we've developed a product which has been tested in the case of WEM speakers to improve their productivity. Much of our revenue primarily still comes from consulting services, and we're using part of that as the feedback to improve our MVP, specifically for Sadie. Yeah.
In the middle?
Could you tell me about the onboarding process for the customers, where the burden lies, about how long that takes?
So right now we've been in a very fortunate position in that customers have been actually reaching out to us themselves. So we haven't had to do much marketing, in part because of our connection to Zapier.
Actually, like post-customer acquisition. So once they're signed on, how do you get the product implemented?
Okay, so there are 2 components there. The first part is that we are implementing the product, and the second component is introducing sort of maintenance in order to make sure that the product adopts as the type of tasks might be changing this time.
Question right here.
You said you're looking for software engineers. What languages or platforms are you looking for?
I think I should not be the right person to answer that, but I would be more than happy to connect you to a person who is involved in that process.
Question. So you mentioned that you were able to help Leon speakers. And so what did that look like for them? You mentioned like 6 times more orders. What specifically did you help Leon with that moved the needle on that?
Right, so Leon had all those different steps, for instance, that I mentioned earlier, specifically, right, getting orders and processing them. And all of this information would get sort of lost in between. There would be all those different parts working separately. So what Sadie, the prototype of Sadie, managed to do is basically to be able to synchronize all those processes. So different parts of the enterprise were aware of where the other parts are, and the information, the data would automatically sync up between those components.
Okay. Other questions?
No questions about money? Seriously?
I'm going to wonder about Zapier in the industrial world. There seems to be a great need for focus on service businesses where the worker isn't at a station that lends itself to a classic ERP or to these kinds of solutions. You have anything to say about that, or what your intentions are ultimately in that domain?
Right, so I think that goes back to our customer discovery and how we've decided to zoom in first on specifically the mid-sized businesses and early stage businesses, because what we ideally hope for is that a lot of those businesses want to eventually scale up and become those industry level, big size enterprises. And our approach is that we want to develop a solution for them early on as is, and sort of continue nurturing that relationship as they grow.
Time for one more? All right, thank you. So thanks for the great questions and the great pitches. And we're going to transition now to our post-pitch community announcements. So if you have a community announcement, come on up and line up in front of the whiteboard here, and then we'll have people come up one at a time, stand in front of this desk right about here, and give your 1 to 2 minute pitch. And so if you have a meetup you're trying to promote, a position you're hiring for, you're looking for a collaborator, come on up right now. Get up and move around, line up now. Don't be shy, and make your announcement to the group. And so yeah, it's a great way to get something out to the community at large. So as soon as someone's ready, you can come up and make the first one. So come on right here, and we'll get you on camera that way.
Okay.
Yep, right in front of the desk.
Cool. Hi, my name is Dylan, and I run a business called Circle Tech LLC. So what we do is in IT asset recovery. We go to recycling centers, junkyards, drug removal places, businesses, and office buildings, and buy IT assets that would have gone to a scrap yard and then resell them to secondary markets. What that means is that we can pay the business a lot more than they're going to get scrap. And right now, it's just me, and I have one employee doing about 6,000 in sales a month. And I'm looking to try to talk to anyone, investors, advisors, venture capitalists. I don't care. I'm just looking to talk to anyone who will listen because I'm looking at trying to scale up the business.
Awesome. Other thing I'll mention, you can write up your information on this board using the white board markers here so that people can find your email afterwards. Perfect. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Garrett Stuckey, and I host the Startup 360 podcast, which is a channel on YouTube. And what I am looking for is please subscribe on YouTube. And I'm also looking for startups to interview. I do see some previous guests in here, which is really great. So again, that's Startup 360 podcast, and my name is Garrett. And I'll write my info up there for you.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm an independent consultant. I focus on data engineering, data science, and business intelligence. I have a lot of fun doing predictive sports analytics, and one of my other clients is a large automotive OEM, and I'm just letting you know who I am, and I've always got my eyes open for additional customers, so let me know if I can help you.
Great.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jacob. I own my company, Check Blue. We are software development and security. My background is I came from a healthcare organization where I did automation, programming on the side, and then worked on their security team. Our biggest client right now is we work with a company out in Troy. If you guys have ever heard of Carvana sells cars online. Our client builds these domes in order to take professional photography for Carvana, and he's also expanding out. So not only do we have software experience, but the software that integrates with mechanical. So automating lights, cameras, machinery, stuff like that. Looking for additional clients, even if it's just like small startups. You guys are trying to get MVPs. Be happy to help out. I have some business cards, so I'll leave them out over here. Thank you.
All right, lighter set of announcements than usual, but thanks for the announcements, those who shared. So, Ann Arbor NewTech, as we wrap up, we're always on the third Tuesday of every month, so that means that on July 16th, we'll be back here in this room for Ann Arbor NewTech again. That's a Tuesday again. And right now we do have space open for pitches in July. So if you want to pitch or you know someone who should pitch, have them email us at organizers@A2NewTech.org, and we will ask them some questions to learn about what stage you're at or what they're at, and see if they're ready to pitch for this group. And generally what we look for in people that pitch is that you've done some customer validation, spoken with prospective customers at least, and ideally you've also built out a prototype as well. So let us know if you have pitch ideas for next month. In August, our plan is to have the Tech Arb cohort pitch. So we'll have, I think, 5 companies who are in the Tech Arb Accelerator pitching for us in August, which would be great. And in the next month before our July meetup, you can again find us at our Slack channel. That's madeina2.com/Slack. And if you haven't seen it before, check out madeina2.com. It's kind of a directory of Ann Arbor tech companies, so you might learn about some new folks, new companies that you're not aware of on that website. So yeah, contact us with your pitch for July, and then last but not least, who's planning to join us at Dominic's for post-event networking afterwards? Okay, awesome, good group coming over. So just to know, the venue is 21 plus, and it's at 812 Monroe Street, which is just a half block that way. So yeah, come on and join us, but thanks for coming out, everybody.